Obviously, we were just talking earlier about marriage and who recently has got married. And actually, I think marriage is actually, the statistics of marriage have halved, I think. Yeah. Do you think marriage is irrelevant? Is this why why aren't men getting married?
Well, the bottom line is it's a raw deal. For men, it's a really raw deal. The benefits are heavily outweighed by the dangers and the risks. If you're a man and you divorce, the outcome usually favors women massively. You can end up losing your home, half of your pension, half of your wealth. You can end up not seeing your children. And studies have shown that men are more adversely mentally affected by divorce than women. So, and there's also a lot less support network in place.
You also say that if a woman gets pregnant for a career choice, and I think that you have used the words that women do get pregnant for career choices, that's what they want to do, that if you were the guy and that you didn't approve or you didn't okay that pregnancy, then you, I know you use a term, I didn't like it actually when I read it, it was just like financial abortion, I think you say. Well, I didn't like that, but what that means is that you can say, right, okay, I had nothing to do with this, I didn't ask for it, you've surprised me with it, therefore I've got nothing to do with it, I won't support it.
Well, what I was really saying is I was mooting that as like a hypothetical point to illustrate the fact that when it comes to power, although the illusion is that men have all the power, actually when it comes to kind of personal relationships and relationships between the sexes, women have most of the power.
Well, that's true as well, but obviously babies are made by two people, so shouldn't men just use contraception?
Shouldn't men just use contraception? Shouldn't they stop being pigs after just saying, well, it takes two people? As if she's never heard of sperm jackers, right? As if women haven't tried to purposely get pregnant to lock a man down. We've never heard any of those stories, right? It's, he should have used contraception. I've heard stories of women going in bathrooms, digging out the condom and getting themselves pregnant with it. And then when they said in the beginning, why are men putting off marriage or avoiding it? Well, yeah, it's a raw deal for men. 9.9 times out of 10 when it results in a divorce, it goes horrible for men. Mm-hmm. I've seen men become former shells of themselves.
I guess the question was, given all the risk factors that men face when it comes to a long-term relationship or a marriage, why would you risk having an unwanted pregnancy?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Because what do? Have abstinence in your relationship? Like the way she's saying it, well, it took a man. Well, obviously two people that are in a relationship have sex. You don't think accidents happen? And then if said accident happens and the woman's decision is, I'm going to keep the baby, this man is beholden financially and legally to the raw deal he was talking about.
No, I completely understand that it's a raw deal. It's just hard to understand from our point of view because it's, you know, for a woman, it is basically in her hands, right? Mm-hmm. Whether or not she carries the baby or aborts it, right? Mm-hmm. So knowing that the power is in her hands, the question is, why would you risk having sex with somebody you're not ready to have a baby with, knowing that there are all this entire list of negative consequences to you?
Yeah, but it's impossible in today's society. Like nobody does not have sex in a relationship. So it's like, besides abstaining, that risk exists for both people. On the point he made about financial abortion, I agree. It's if a woman decides to keep the baby, right, with all the contraceptive choices we have, he should be allowed to sign a contract that says, since she decided and I didn't, then I want to withdraw financial obligation from the kid. I think if we had these rules in place, kids out of wedlock and quote unwanted pregnancies would diminish greatly because the incentive of extracting money from a man is there. So the consequences are damn near zero for women in terms of like, should I have this kid or should I not? Because not only will he be out of my life, I'll still get money from him and then get money from the government. So it won't be all that bad as opposed to he's going to vanish out of my life and I don't get any of his financial assistance. I only rely on the piddly pennies the government gives me, right? Can't go after this kid for child support. I can't take him to child support to get his salary reassessed and get even more money, ask for more money down the future. If this guy starts making $250,000, $500,000 a year, you know, he gets deep in his career in his 40s and 50s, you can keep asking for a ton more money, right? It's insane that we incentivize single motherhood. It blows my mind because what's wrong with bringing two people to the table with abortion being legal in most states, right? Contraceptives heavily skewed to women's favor, right? Men don't have a little pill that we can take. It's just condoms. Everybody hates using condoms. Let's be real, men and women included. Rather not use condoms. And when you're in a relationship for years, people no longer use condoms. You're not going to use condoms 10 years into your relationship, right? It's not like, this is like telling teenagers, practice abstinence, don't have sex. You better not have sex. It's bad for you. They're not going to listen. You're going to tell two consenting adults that they should wear protection. That's your answer to this problem of unwanted pregnancy. It's moronic.
I think it's telling two consenting adults that their actions have consequences. Just like you said, you know, she could easily be left with just the baby and he could walk out, right? That was her consequence for one deciding to have sex with a man that doesn't want to be with her and decides to walk out because she gets pregnant. And now she, you know, if she's not economically stable herself, now her consequence is that she needs to rely on the government to take care of her child.
Right. I think if we gave both genders the ability to say yes or no, then we would get a lot less of these out of wedlock.
I think ideally we would give men the ability to have contraception for themselves, right? So if you engage in sex, you're not risking impregnating the woman.
If we had a magic pill, every guy would be on it all day, never miss a beat. But there's no money in that. It's always a money thing, right? Why would you dare stop unwanted pregnancies? Do you know how much money the industry makes from all these households being born out of wedlock, all these kids that need all those services because the single parent is at work or can't watch them, daycare, nannies for babies, everything.
But that's really what the frustrating part of the conversation is that the consequences are so dire and they're not only for you, but also for your children, right? Because you could easily say, I don't want this kid, whatever, I'm leaving. But this kid, that's an entire life, it's a life, right?
Yeah.
So this person didn't choose to be in this shitty situation where his dad decided he didn't want him and left, right? But it was the dad that decided to have sex with that woman and create this child, isn't it?
Yes, but there are situations in which a man does everything right and he still gets screwed up.
I mean, look, if you're talking about sperm jacking, I'm totally with you, right? That's completely wrong. What argument could I make against that?
Right, of course.
But when you're talking about two people who know that sex equals baby, right? And they decide to have sex, unprotected sex, because you can't say there is no way that a man can protect himself. You said it yourself. Well, I don't want to use a condom. So you're making a choice not to use the contraception that is available. And now you're upset that you have the consequences of being responsible for another person. Should have thought of that before as well.
Well, right. But that's the whole deal with the entirety of a pregnancy happening. Why is it allowed for a woman to opt out and say, I'll terminate the baby, but a man can't make that decision also, right? So a woman once pregnant has all the power. I'm keeping him or I don't keep him. What if the man, see, there's reverses where she doesn't want to keep the kid and the man's like, please, I want to have this baby. I don't believe in abortions. Can we please, I'll be there for you. And she goes, no, I'm not having this kid, and gets an abortion anyway.
Right. Well, that's the sticky part, because the baby's growing inside her body.
I don't know. I think the ideal world, both people have to sign off on the abortion for it to happen. I think so. Or if one party doesn't, like the man, then he needs to be financially not obligated to the kid anymore. So the woman needs to understand that once the pregnancy happens, they need to sit down, come together, and sign off on the paperwork to go forward, right? Give people the right to choose. We can get into the semantics of, but it takes two people, and then they had sex, and then they did this, but there's a huge swath of the population where they were accidents. So we just it's never bad to give people choice, to give them a choice. And I think it would lead to a lot less broken homes.
I hate to be pessimistic, but I think if you give men the right to choose, it would lead to a lot more broken homes.
I'll disagree on that one.
I know. Well, unfortunately, women have the lion's share of contraceptive choices, and once a woman is pregnant, of course, the man has no say, and yet the consequences for his life are lifelong and huge. They have a huge impact.
That's true, but if he'd taken precautions in the first place, he wouldn't have a baby. So don't men have to just use their brains rather than what's in their pants?
Absolutely. And look, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of reckless men and plenty of responsible women out there. And of course, not all women get pregnant as a career choice. That was a sample of a study that I was quoting. But, you know, there are instances, like look at Liz Jones at the Daily Mail. She famously stole the sperm from her husband's condom. She violated his choice about fatherhood, and that could have changed his life forever.
Have you been hurt?
No, I'm not.
What is it? What started this off? Is this a big revenge trip?
No, not at all. Look, this is just about me being a young man in the modern world. After 50 years of feminism, I am one of the products of that. And, you know, I have 3 wonderful sisters who I love, and my mother I have a great relationship with. My parents are still together. So my personal experience of marriage, you know, is wonderful. But for me, as a young man entering into that, politically, it's just not viable.
So you would never get married?
No. Well, I would do if the laws changed. If I was protected in equal measure to, you know, like perhaps the woman I'd marry, then I would consider it. But at the moment, I mean, let's be honest, marriage is a contract. It's a business deal. And I wouldn't enter into any contract without reading the terms and conditions and being aware of the risks.
Facts. That's what's stopping a lot of men from getting married today. It's how oppressive the contract of marriage is for men. It's insane. You can lose everything you've ever worked for just because a woman decides to walk out on the marriage, right? We have no fault divorces. That's insane. You can catch your spouse cheating and they can walk out and take, for men, it's usually men that are the earners. So it's usually they're the ones that are going to lose out on assets, on income. That's insane. Imagine coming home to your spouse cheating. And it's happened in reverse to women too, where women are the high earners and men are the stay-at-home dads. And then they take the women to court and ream them on child support. And the women, of course, the narrative is like, why don't you be a man and get a job? Why don't you stop being a bum? Imagine if a man said that to the woman. Why don't you stop being a bum and mooching off me? No, that's not a conversation society's ready to have. That true equality that feminists talk about. It's crazy in legal sense. No, it doesn't make sense in certain countries in the West, especially where the terms are so bad, to get married.
It's not an attractive offer.
Right. It's not at all. And then women are like, well, why wouldn't you want to marry? Don't you want a family? You can have a family without getting married. That little contract does not matter. That little contract does not mean I love you more or less either. Right. So many women pigeonhole men into marriage by like, you don't love me? What do you mean you don't want to get married? You don't want to spend the rest of your life with me? And it's like, what do you do? I know what you're doing, right? A little piece of paper doesn't change the status of our relationship and how we interact day to day. But women think it's like, oh my God, because they get sold the Disney dream of getting married, huge white wedding and a gown, right? That special day every woman looks forward to. But women have changed today. Right? Society views women differently. They're now strong, independent. Women go to college. Women get good jobs. Women earn a ton of money. Gone are the days where women are just some stay-at-home Stepford wives. There's no employment opportunities. You live in the kitchen, just cook, clean, watch the house. No, that's gone. But the laws have stayed there.
Right. That's what's happened is that we've moved away from traditions, but we're still beholden to, institutions like marriage. Mm-hmm. I think in the traditional sense, what marriage represents to women is that long-term commitment that we yearn for and that stability in our relationship. But I do understand why men, from a logistical sense, wouldn't be eager to make that commitment.
Oh, 100%. Like I said, I bartended in college and I've seen husks of men, revolving door of regulars that have gotten absolutely reamed by the courts, taken for everything, lost their jobs afterwards, went into depression, started drinking, didn't see the kids anymore. Wife kept the kids from them. Alimony crushed them. Child support crushed them. And this guy that was making, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month could hardly afford an apartment, could hardly afford to live anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I've heard, not only have I heard, but I read a comment recently too. A man recently got divorced, or it was a story of a man that got divorced. But before the divorce happened, he had a really high paying job. And so the divorce happens. The court deems child support and alimony based on said job income. Something happens, the man gets sick and he loses his job. after the court had already ordered him to pay whatever he was ordered to pay based on previous salary of hundreds of thousands that he was making. He was forced to take a job where he was only making like 50,000, 60,000, right? Complete regression in like earning power. Okay. But the courts never recognized that. So this guy could not even survive himself. He went from like having everything to now was living out of his car because that was the only way he could make the payments. And then shortly after takes his life because he couldn't deal with the stress. Because you're so broke and have to live in your car after the court already mandated you pay X amount because of your previous job, you don't even have the money for counsel to get that reversed and to reassess your earnings again to come up with a new payment. So that chick, whatever, his wife was living the high life already with a new man. Kids are doing well in a nice big house that he paid for. And now he was left to live out of his truck. And because of the pressure and not having money for counsel for anything really, you take your own life. And people wonder why men, like the suicide rate in men is so high. It's like, have you seen what happens to the average man after a divorce? I don't think many people have, man, until you go bartending and see what it's like to have literally like 6 regulars come in, all chirping away at the same stories, like scars you as a man. I'm here in my prime in college, and I'm just like talking with these guys, like varying degrees of success too, from just like average to like, dude was a millionaire. And all of them varying degrees of like getting reamed in court, from taken for absolutely everything to like do the best I could do. And an absolute win was she took half and I got to see my kids 50% too. That was a win. That was a win. I didn't get taken for everything. I won. Whew. Yeah. Until the laws change, men aren't going to change. I mean, prenups, you can say you got to get an ironclad prenup. That alone costs like, a proper prenup is thousands of dollars. You need to have lawyers present, notary present. You have to do it in front of a judge. People can't be under duress. There are so many little stipulations to get an ironclad prenup to be recognized in courts. You can't just go up to your wife and be like, sign this prenup and we're good. And then you go to court, it gets thrown out. Like, bye. No, this wasn't done properly. It has no validity in the courts. Marriage today in America is not worth it for men, especially the dating culture, which leads these hollow relationships and people just wanting the glam and the glitz and the attention of a marriage, right? And then they fall off in 3 months. You get divorced in like 3 months. You get divorced in like 6 months max. These people are just like on a roulette of like, I fell in love, I'm going to get married.
I'm on my 4th one.
Right, I'm on my 3rd, 4th divorce. It's insane, man.